Jess, you're a little bit under the weather tonight, so are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for some rapid fire.
All right. Let's start with this one. We got a question that will plop in. We kind of touched on this at the start of the show. If you weren't with us at the start, David asked, any news on the O-line coaching candidates that are interviewing? All we can say right now is there are some interviewing, and I know that there is some pretty good interest in at least one of them. We're not able to talk about any names right now, but that process is going on, and hopefully we're going to be able to talk about a name or two within the next day or two. So just hold on with that, and we'll see where that goes. We know more. We know more right now. We at least know more than we knew yesterday. Let's put it that way. All right, Jess. So we've got more of the Gerad Parker comments, some of his audio in rapid fire, including he was asked about clarifying his role as a play caller and his duties as a play caller at West Virginia, because there's been talk about, were you stripped of play calling duties and all that kind of stuff. So here's Gerad Parker kind of explaining that.
Very honest picture and due respect by all parties involved. That's about all I would put with it, is that a very clear message was put across when I took the job that I would run unit meetings and do a lot of things. I was involved in every facet of building an offensive game plan, controlling the players over there in unit meetings and all those things. And that was clearly portrayed. During that time, I was offered by Coach Brown an opportunity to be able to call plays at different times during year one. And those would be different moments of red zone in different areas. When my number was called, be prepared. When it wasn't, serve the head coach and serve our offense. That was done. Year two, at a certain time at that point, things changed for a multitude of reasons. When my number was called, I was prepared to call those games and called them in entirety. So at that point, that's when things maybe changed to a full scope of calling complete games. And again, the details of that I don't think are fair to anything moving forward. But I was tremendously grateful for that opportunity. It prepared me for what this one's going to be. And that's really about all I would say to it. Thank you.
So what did you hear there, Jesse? Did it sound like he was made some promises that basically weren't kept? Did it sound like that to you?
Yeah, I thought he gave a very diplomatic response in saying
very diplomatic
that, he was under the impression or maybe promised one thing and it was, followed through to a certain extent. And I don't think it was the extent that he was anticipating.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that there was a lot of different kind of, cooks in the kitchen, and they couldn't really all get on the same page of who was going to be calling what or what was best for, the entirety of the offense. And so honestly, it just kind of felt like a hodgepodge of different guys kind of maybe doing different things. Maybe one week a guy was a play caller, and then the next week he wasn't. And I think that, again, that it didn't sound like it was too fair to someone like Gerad Parker because of what he was guaranteed going into the situation.
And calling someone else's offense to begin with and then kind of getting yanked. It just seems like micromanaged in all the wrong ways is what it seems like. And, like you said, I thought that was as diplomatic an offense or as diplomatic a response to his role in whatever role that was in the offense as you could get. He didn't throw anybody under the bus, and he said it as nicely as he could. And, like he said at the end, thank you. Let's move on, basically. So, all right. A lot of other stuff, quarterback stuff that I want to get to now, beginning with Sam Hartman. And as the new offensive coordinator, Sam Hartman has only been on campus for maybe a month or so, I guess, going on a month and a half or something like that at this point. He was brought in when Tommy Rees was the offensive coordinator. Tommy is gone now, and now he's got a new offensive coordinator. So what kind of a priority was it for Gerad Parker to make an early connection with Sam Hartman?
All of them, they're all critical because now you're not building relationships with 8 guys in the tight end room. You're building relationships with an entire offensive unit. I understand the question about Sam because of the nature of him coming here and him getting here, and it was a big news. But he is driven by ball and driven to get better and come here to have what he wants to have success here at Notre Dame. So there's been communication with all of them, but especially with him to obviously sit down and talk to him about the direction of the offense, to maybe ease some anxieties, because with change comes a lot of thoughts and things that you want to get addressed. So we've addressed it with the entire offensive unit, the staff, and we'll continue to give our guys confidence and let them know that the direction is to move forward, as Coach Freeman says.
He's driven by ball, for starters. So what do you think of the importance of connecting with Hartman specifically under these circumstances?
I think there's two big aspects that come with this. Is one, obviously, the quarterback is the most important position that you got to be on the same page with as an offensive coordinator. He's basically your extension on the field. He's the commander. He runs the offense. All things that go on in your head have to be able to be communicated to your quarterback. So, like he said, he goes from commanding 8 men to having to command an entire offensive unit. But of that offensive unit, his connection has to be best with Sam Hartman. They have to be on the same page no matter what. And I think the thing that had to be reiterated to Sam Hartman is, Sam Hartman didn't come here, or I should say Sam Hartman came here, I think specifically because of what Marcus Freeman talked about early on in his press conferences. They want Notre Dame to run pro-style offenses and defenses so they can transition into the NFL better, at a better rate and more quickly. And that's the number one reason why Sam Hartman transferred here, is because he wanted to be in an offense that was more pro style and could improve his draft stock and show a lot of NFL teams that he can run an NFL style offense. And so whether that's Tommy Rees's pro style plays, whether that's Gerad Parker's pro style plays, whether that's, I think that's the window dressing and everything. I think overall, what the most important thing that sold Sam Hartman is he gets to come to a talented team. He gets to come to a talented, a program like Notre Dame, and
bigger stage, bigger platform.
Right. And the backbone of all of it was that he was going to run a pro style offense. So as long as those words were conveyed, pro style, I think that calmed any nerves that Sam Hartman might have had. Sure. Was it probably, better for Sam Hartman to be with Tommy Rees, and because that was, what was pitched to him during the transfer portal process? Sure. But I don't think that much changes just because Gerad Parker is now the play caller and the play designer, because again, they're going to be running pro style offenses. And that was the thing that needed to be, the common denominator throughout the whole process.
And that's the key for Sam Hartman, is what kind of offense he is going to be in. He's not going to be in that slow mesh like he was in at Wake Forest. He wouldn't still be in college if they were running a different kind of offense at Wake Forest. He probably would have declared for the NFL. He would probably have more, there's not going to be, NFL teams running that Wake Forest slow mesh. That's the attractiveness of running a pro style offense. And they are going to have that same pro style offense. Like you said, I think that's big. The relationship, that he had already built with Marcus Freeman and Gerad Parker. He touched on it a couple of times in his press conference yesterday, and you hear things that guys say. He's very big, just right there with Marcus Freeman, very big on the relationship-driven part of the process as well. So I'm sure, that he will be really connected with, with Gerad Parker as his offensive coordinator, as well as Gino Gaduli. I keep having to say it as as I'm a paisano, as Joe Pepitito would say. Gaduli. When Gino Gaduli gets here, there'll be a great connection there as well. Now, Parker was also asked, not just about that connection with Hartman, but the strengths of both Tyler Buchner and Sam Hartman, and how those kind of differing skill sets, how he operates with that.
It's our job to know what their skills are and make them better. But not get away from something that maybe it's not what fits them. So it's going to be our job to tailor this thing around in a pro style form, as Coach Freeman said. But we're going to do what our players can do best, and then find ways to enhance. So yes, some of them, there's some certain differences in the two. So it's our job to play off those differences of who it may be with Sam, and the same thing of Tyler, just as we did in the bowl game. We want to do what our guys are good at and then get better at doing them.
Scale of 1 to 10, Jesse, how much do you like the answer?
I think for, as much as he could say without quote unquote creating a quarterback controversy, it's pretty up there in a 9 out of 10. And it's what I've kind of talked about in the past is I don't think just because Sam Hartman is here, Tyler Buchner's just done for. I think that, again, we can see personnel packages maybe within the red zone that involve Tyler Buchner because of what he can do with his legs and the fact that teams have to account for another aspect of the, of a basically what you could classify as like a triple option, because you can hand it off, you can keep it as a quarterback, or you can pass it. And so when you have to make teams account for one more thing, especially down in the red zone, it just causes a little bit more confusion. So I do think that Parker kind of hinted at that, that there's going to be maybe, personnel packages that maybe they use, Hartman from 20 to 20-yard line to 20-yard line, or 20-yard line to 30-yard line. And in certain instances, maybe short down situations, or like I said, red zone, you see a little bit more Buchner on the field. So I think it's great if he sticks to or follows through kind of with that statement, because I think that both guys can definitely play this year and provide an impact and help enhance Notre Dame's overall game as an offensive unit.
Yeah, I love it. It's at least a 9 for me, I think. And I like hearing the sort of reaffirmation, throughout the press conference about playing to the strengths of the personnel, because that was something that I always felt was an asset, something Tommy Rees did well. I wasn't as convinced about that all the time last year, with some of the personnel packages and stuff that he would fall back on. So just along the lines of what you're saying, you do have two guys with different skill sets. I do think there's a way to keep Tyler Buchner involved in this offense with the unique skill set that he has. And I think we're going to see that with a lot of other position groups as well. So I really liked the response to that. Jeff says, Sean and Son, Mr. Whiteboard, all I want to know is if we'll actually see more two-back sets from what you take from his comments.
I mean, if he follows through with his comments of talking about, again, I thought that he emphasized a lot of what they're good at is their offensive line, tight ends, and two backs, and talking about enhancing those things and allowing the game to kind of open up on the perimeter outside of those things. I think that only points to that they'll use more two backs and the combinations that come off of it with their tight ends, and getting maybe their two backs involved on the perimeter as wide receivers, as extension of the run game, whatever it might be. I think that he was only alluding to, we have really good running backs, so how can we enhance that even more? Right. So if we can only go off of his words, I would say yes, that I would expect a lot more two-back sets.
I don't know how you don't have the three backs that you had last year and then bring Jadarian Price back from the injury and have four guys who all, they can all catch footballs. They can all work out of the backfield. Again, like I would have Chris Tyree on the field a lot because of as versatile and as versatile as he is and as fast as he is. And the things that you're talking about with the mismatches you can cause and, personnel, taking advantage of mismatches and all that stuff. Tyree is a mismatch nightmare to me. And the fact that he wasn't used more as kind of a, Swiss Army knife in the offense last year, I think that, it's really disappointing. And hopefully we're able to see more of that this year. The other three, I think, Tyree can run out of the backfield as well, but the other three can all be more, pure out of the backfield, but you can move Tyree around to just about anywhere you want.
Listen, I'm just going to be point blank honest. I feel like Notre Dame should exploit linebacker matchups with their running backs all day long until teams can prove that they can stop it.
Right.
That's the only reason you should start going away from it. And I would, you'll get into games where like Clemson, USC, Ohio State, where the speed and athleticism gap will be bridged. But I would still make those teams follow through that they can guard your guys one-on-one, because once you start doing that, it's easy to do an out and up, right? Or like a wheel up the sideline, or just minor alterations where you're showing one thing on film and they're committing to it, and then you just get one extra step on them, and now you're busted up the sideline. So I just think that Notre Dame needs to make teams prove that they can stop what they do best, and that's involving their running backs in the run and pass game.
Concur. So finally, one more comment from Gerad Parker, quarterback involvement. He's a non quarterback offense, a non-quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. So what is Parker's role with the quarterbacks going to be?
And how I've already thought about it will be like anything that is technician based. We're going to have a pro that's going to do that part. My part will be to make sure we have unit meetings, to watch past phases of our offense and different things to make sure we're seeing the whole scope together through the same lens. And more importantly, let those guys feel my confidence in what we want to call because they also love it. So I think just tying it all together as a group so we're speaking the same language. In the future, when we're able to announce officially our quarterbacks coach, I don't want to be able to walk in and say something different than what he's saying. If we're not on the same page, speaking the same language, and we have an issue, and that will not be something we'll want to do. So just being able to speak the same language, how do you do that? You got to be able to communicate in the same room a lot of times. So we'll find ways to cheat that time together, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Basically, the head coach of the offense is what he's saying. The quarterback coach is going to coach the quarterbacks. Gino Gaduli will have that role, and Parker is going to be there to run the offense, but he's not going to, doesn't want to say something different than what the quarterback coach is saying. And like Jesse, have you had coaches who've micromanaged too much and maybe caused more, unneeded confusion than necessary as a result?
Yeah, my linebackers coach in college was just a guy who felt like before he transitioned to being the full-time defensive coordinator, he just felt like a guy that would sit up all night, watch film, and just try to devise the perfect thing. And it was just information overload at times. And it's like, why not, rather than micromanage this whole situation and find some things that we're good at. Like I remember one time we were trying to install like 6 or 7 blitz packages in one practice, and we could barely, get the hang of like 1 or 2. And it just felt like we were way kind of too, micromanaged it in that aspect of you need to execute this play, at this perfect timing and, da 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 da. And it's like, if that's the case, then why are we running this if it has to be executed, just perfectly every time? But going into the stuff that Gerad Parker was talking about, I think that he made a perfect analogy of, he's not a quarterback's coach. So why would he be giving information on the mechanics or the technician side of being a quarterback? Like he wouldn't walk into the room and tell the quarterback how to throw the ball, how to release the ball, whatever, because that's outside of, what his realm. But what he would do is talk to the quarterback's coach and the quarterback about, overall coverage, what they're looking at, or, what he needs to do if he sees this or that and that kind of thing. So I think being on that page of, I'm not going to micromanage, the details of how, our quarterback throws the ball or timing or anything like that. But at the same time, we need to be on the same page of what we're looking at of, to get out of this play or what we're identifying as the weakness, for whatever is being shown to them. So I really like that, actually.
Yep, me too. Like it quite a bit. And, again, I think there's a lot of excitement that, listening to Gerad Parker yesterday, there's no doubt he had a great press conference. We just got to see all of this stuff put in motion now. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Some really interesting news that Pete Thamel from ESPN had today. According to his sources, LSU's special teams coordinator Brian Polian is transitioning to an off-field role at LSU where he's going to help manage the roster, NIL, and the transfer portal in a general manager type role. With that move, LSU is searching for a new special teams coach. All of this, Jesse, is blank.
It's hysterical, in my opinion, and I think it only proves kind of this undying loyalty that Brian Kelly has to Polian because, he brought Polian along with him maybe the undying loyalty that they have to each other, and I'm not trying to speak badly of Mr. Kelly, but I heard he's going through some things in his marriage too. Maybe him and Mr. Polian could, get together. I don't know. No, it's a joke. But interesting enough. I just think that, Brian Kelly kind of created this position for Brian Polian. It found a way for him to kind of still be involved in the program. But overall, it's just funny to me because Brian Polian has never proven himself as being an elite coach, yet he's always kind of hanging around Brian Kelly's circle.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think that Brian Kelly, after getting down there this year, and then he looked back up to the north, if he was paying attention and he saw, how Notre Dame's special teams skyrocketed in stature after 1 year under Brian Mason. And here's Brian Mason, winning awards and doing all this stuff. And in the meantime, LSU loses to Florida State because of a couple special teams play in the season opener last year. And they were obviously very unspectacular, and all these excuses we heard about special teams when those guys were up here together, they all seem to evaporate in a very short amount of time after Brian Mason took over. I wonder how much that played into it, but I think it's very interesting. I think that Polian, he comes from basically football royalty family. Bill Polian, who helped shape the Buffalo Bills AFC dynasty of the late 80s and early 90s with Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed and Cornelius, but all that whole crew in Buffalo, and then he drafted Peyton Manning and he hired Tony Dungy in Indianapolis and he got the Carolina Panthers to a sewer. That's where Brian Polian came from. So he's got a great background. I'm sure, he seemed like a very good organizational type person, and probably at a place like LSU, a person like him might just be better suited for that role. And they move on, find themselves a new special teams coordinator. And, again, vast upgrade in what Notre Dame got in that position this year in just one short year with the same people, basically. And that's true too, Anthony. His dad, Bill, has forgotten more than Brian ever learned. But I do still think that Brian Polian, has a sharp mind. His dad, ultra sharp. So there's this big topic kicking around college football right now. They're looking at some possible changes to clock operations to cut down on the growing length of time of games. The two biggest proposals are keeping the clock running after first downs, except for when there is less than 2 minutes to go in a half. And the other is to run the clock as soon as the ball is spotted after an incomplete pass. So first, let me ask you this. Do you think college football games are too long?
I do think that college football games are too long, especially being, I'm a fan of college and NFL. So when I go from college on Saturday to NFL on Sunday, it's like NFL on Sunday is at warp speed. It feels like, you're going to get done in X amount of time. There's really not a lot of deviation from that. And I think that, a lot of people are clamoring about, well, why not cut down on commercials and, ads and all that stuff and TV timeouts. And it's like, I get that, but it's never going to happen. That's what drives the business. Those things are never going to be
taken out. That's how these conferences and Notre Dame and, whoever gets these, big TV contracts is because of advertising. Advertising's not going away. And by the way,
that those are annoying, but it's just going to be a part of it.
And according to Sports Illustrated, the source they had, TV commercials don't have a very big impact. Games not televised, according to their data, only finished about 2 minutes sooner than a game that is not being televised. We're talking about FBS games. We're not comparing like D2 to FBS and that kind of stuff.
Right. And then another thing I saw was, well, why not cut, the band performances at halftime? And it's like, I don't really get along or agree with that either, because to me, a big tradition of college football, especially in rivalry games and, games of high kind of magnitude, is I've always enjoyed the bands at halftime. And, there's students that go to school specifically to be in the marching bands and that kind of stuff. So I'm not really on board with cutting the band performances, but I do buy the idea of rolling the clock after first downs. And at the same time, I sell the idea of rolling the clock after incompletion. So I buy half of that, but I don't like the idea. They don't even do that in the NFL. I think it's kind of stupid. What's the purpose of spiking the ball at that point then? Because you're just going to roll the clock after it's spotted.
From what I understand, the average length of an FBS game has gone from 3 hours and 16 minutes 5 years ago to 3 hours and 21 minutes. So it's grown by about 5 minutes. The average NFL game length is 3 hours and 10 minutes, which even that, basically since replay, that's probably added about 5 to 10 minutes to both college and the NFL. The bigger thing, apparently, NFL games average 155 plays per game. FBS football games average 180 plays per game. And one big reason that they're looking at, it's not just game length, but it is the amount of plays that college football gets in the course of a game. Because I guess, again, looking at this data, they're trying to decrease with the college football playoff getting ready to expand to 12 teams here the year after next. What they're trying to do by adding 4 rounds of playoff games, some teams are going to be playing 16 or 17 games over the course of the season. So the data says, and they've done some experimentation with this, I guess, running the clock after first downs would eliminate around 9 plays per game. And then running the clock after the incomplete passes, which, as you said, they don't even do in the NFL, that would eliminate around 15 plays per game if they did that. So you're talking about close to 25 plays per game that you're cutting down. You're getting closer to what the NFL is running now, right now. But over bigger picture, over the course of a full 12-game schedule, you're going to eliminate a little bit more than a full game's worth of plays, in terms of wear and tear and, physical contact and all that kind of stuff. And apparently, this is like come from the ACC and Jim Phillips. This is, kind of what it is. That's why apparently they're bigger picture, why they're trying to cut down on this to eliminate plays, not necessarily time. But Joseph, I completely disagree. How is a 3.5-hour football game not too long when NFL can get done in closer to 3 hours? I think it is way too long. I think it is. I mean, ask any fan. This is a common gripe that you hear from fans sitting at Notre Dame Stadium is the length of those home games. And it's gotten a little bit better because of the fact that you have that big video screen out there. So it at least, distracts you a little bit. But those TV timeouts, they are there and they do take forever. And everyone's got TV timeouts and they're not going away. I think instant replay, there's too much instant replay in college football. That's something, that I would cut back on. I'm not sure about the whole stopping the clock after incomplete passes. I agree with what you're saying about first downs. I think you can easily keep it running there and just change the replay system. Change the replay system so that you're not potentially reviewing every play. Like a coach wouldn't even challenge some of these plays that they're stopping the game to look at. And then they take forever to take a look at them. That is something that I would look at before I would think about probably, stopping keeping the clock running after an incomplete pass.
Yeah, I agree with both of those.
But you do agree that college, I think you said it off the top, college football games are too long.
Yeah, they are too long. And especially when you're trying to watch like multiple in one day, like, you could potentially get into 2-3 games per day, and then, a cumulative, spent like maybe 12 hours watching could be, knocked down to 9 hours. So again, I do like it just in the fact of, is it easier to say when you're only, watching one team per week? Sure. But when you're watching a multitude of games, it's like, I just feel like they do go on a little bit too long, and there are ways, are things that could be done at a reasonable level to kind of, speed things up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've always thought, that again, with the amount of instant replay that they have, and I agree with what Anthony's, just limit replay to coaches' challenges. Go to an actual coaches' challenge system. It shouldn't be that hard, because if you have TV, then you just like in the NFL, every team can have a coach in the booth looking at the monitor to say, hey, we need to challenge this or not. It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be as overreaching as it is. I think that would help things out quite a bit. Cut back on that, after the first down, keep the clock running. That's it. I don't know what else you're going to do, because they're probably not going to shorten the length of halftime, like you said, because there's so much going on at a college football game. Okay, fill in the blank. It's blank that New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is reportedly looking for $45 million a year in his next contract.
It's ludicrous that Daniel Jones is asking for $45 million a year. And you start to go look at, some of the top quarterback salaries in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is $50 million per year. Russell Wilson, $49 million per year. Kyler Murray, $46 million per year. and $46 million per year, and Patrick Mahomes at $45 million per year. So $45 million per year is what the MVP, two-time Super Bowl MVP gets. And then there's Daniel Jones. I just think that you can request that kind of money when you're a top-tier quarterback in the NFL. And unfortunately, Daniel Jones isn't a top-tier quarterback in the NFL. And I think, I understand guys got to get their money, and you can get money based on what the market is set at. And the market's set at $50 million right now, but that's the top quarterbacks in the league. And I don't think he's a top-tier quarterback, and I think he needs the Giants more than the Giants need him. And so
exactly
that work out in his favor. And ultimately, I just think that he's going to get franchise tagged. It's going to be him or Barkley, and I think a quarterback is more important than a running back. And I think that he's going to end up getting the franchise tag when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think that when Brian Daboll took over the New York Giants, the question was, what are they going to do with Daniel Jones? Are they going to keep him? What's going to be the plan for him? They made do. I mean, just look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco. If the 49ers can do that with him, and Brian Daboll can do what he just did with Daniel Jones, I think Daboll, it's like, just draft a rookie quarterback and start all over. If you're Daboll, I think you'll be just fine. There's no reason to overpay Daniel Jones. There's absolutely no reason. And I agree with what you're saying. You give Saquon Barkley the contract. Now you're rolling the dice a little bit with that because of his injury history and all, but there's no reason to overpay Daniel Jones because they still have a lot of roster needs they need to address. Their linebackers, their wide receivers, they've got it all over. There's no reason to overpay the quarterback and then put yourself in a hole and not be able, to pay other guys as they're coming up. I would just start over with a young quarterback that you can mold, and that's the direction I would go.
And I'm pretty sure him and Eli have a good, standing relationship. And if I were Eli, I would just say, hey, you're not the Patrick Mahomes of the league.
Not who you think you are.
Take a little pay cut and allow the organization to give you better, options around you. And then potentially you have even some better years. And then maybe you can ask, for more money down the line. But for Daniel Jones, I just don't think it makes sense to request kind of top tier money. I think I'd be okay with an average contract that allows more money to open up around him, to give him more weapons and allow the offense just overall to be better.
Keep your job. That's right. Fill in the blank. Charles Barkley saying on TNT during the NBA's All-Star game in Salt Lake City, quote, "These people are going to heaven. Ain't nothing to do in this boring bleep city. It's a great city, but there ain't nothing to do. Can't smoke, can't drink. These people are going to heaven." End quote. And that's blank.
It is on par with Charles Barkley. There's some famous quotes along the lines of, like he loves the women, down at you're talking about women in San Antonio, and like he's just on par with a lot of these one-liners. And I thought it was, hilarious before the game too. Shaq was talking about, Charles Barkley and stuff. And, it is the honest truth. It's like Salt Lake City is largely a Mormon population, and under, the Mormon, I guess you could say beliefs is you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't, do all these certain things. And so, there is really nothing to do, and you can't have any fun outside of that. So it is a boring city, and those people do deserve to go to heaven for not being the sinners.
I completely agree. And I mean, leave it to Charles Barkley on national TV for the All-Star game to call out Salt Lake City and, all the sins that apparently it's the anti-sin city, I guess, is what it all comes down to. I thought it was hilarious when I saw this. I didn't actually watch the game. Did you watch any of the All-Star game by any chance, Jess?
I just watched the first quarter and then I was done with it.
It sounded ridiculous just seeing some of the highlights yesterday.
It's just the NBA has a problem. I get the players aspect because I feel like basketball is one of those sports where it's easy to tear an ACL or something coming down from a landing. Yeah. But you got to do something to incentivize that game, or just not have the game at all. Like make it so the winner gets home court advantage in the finals, or something. There's got to be, maybe instead you do like 2v2 half court or, you know, 1-on-1 3 dribble half court type stuff. Like, there's just got to be something. If they don't want to play a full game, there's got to be something to display their talents or just not have the game in general, because everyone's just going to gripe about it every year.
I mean, it's where the NFL is right now, right? After getting rid of it. And the NBA's already had their skills competition, and they've added to that with the, you know, the skills challenge and the 3-man teams and all that stuff to go along with the slam dunk and the 3-point shooting contest. And it almost seems like they're probably running down that line where they're just going to gear it around that and, you know, play a celebrity game and go with it. It took forever, I guess, for them to draft teams before that.
Yeah, that also. So yeah, they advertised it to start at 7:30, and they didn't start until like 8:30 because it took an hour to almost draft the players, and there was like a mini concert, and then the players were warming up, and it was a very drawn out.
This is probably what they should do. Just play against the Harlem Globetrotters.
That would be entertaining to watch.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Jess, glad you could break out the whiteboard. I think you made everybody happy, or a lot of people happy with that tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad I could make everyone happy on my day of sickness.
Well, hopefully you're feeling better soon. Did you go to that outdoor hockey game? Derek is commenting about that.
Was that no, I didn't go to that. It was Ohio State versus Michigan on within First Energy Stadium. Had the option to go, but I didn't go. That's going to be like the first of multiple games inside of First Energy Stadium. They're going to be playing a minor league hockey game inside of the stadium.
That's right.
And I think there might be another one outside of that, but I did not go, but a lot of people said it was a good time.
All right. Well, hit the like button on your way out, please, to help out Irish Breakdown. Great stuff tonight. Good feedback from all of our listeners and viewers. As always, hit the like button, subscribe, rate and review, and leave us a comment on your podcast platforms as well. And we will talk to you tomorrow. Hope you're feeling better, Jesse. IB Nation Sports Talk.